Hey, this is Ryan Caraher with another free lesson from ryancaraher.com. This is part 1 of 2 on using things you already know to create an outside sound. This part 1 deals with triads, and part 2 deals with the major scale. Part 1 is completely free on YouTube, and you can download the PDF on my website in the link below. Part 2, you can get the video and the PDF by joining my mailing list. Hope you enjoy this lesson, and if you enjoy it, please contact me to schedule one-on-one Skype lessons. Thank you. Many of these concepts will contain wrong notes and unconventional tensions. And what I mean by unconventional tensions is a natural 7 on a dominant 7 or something like that. So it is important to understand the principles of tension resolution. Personally, I believe that you can play any of the 12 notes over any chord. Every single note is an available pitch to use. There are no wrong notes, you just have to know how to resolve them properly. And you resolve the altered tensions to the underlying notes of the harmony or the chord scale because these notes properly suggest the function of the chord. So for example, the tensions that you would commonly run into are flat 9, 9, sharp 9, 11, sharp 11, flat 13, and 13. Flat 9 resolves down a half step to the root. 9 can resolve up to the third, or the flat 3 in a minor chord, or down a whole step to the root. Sharp 9 resolves a half step up to the third. The 11 resolves to the third or the flat 3 in a minor, or up to the fifth or flat 5 in a minor 7, flat 5, or diminished 7 chord. Sharp 11 resolves up a half step to the fifth. Flat 13 resolves down a half step to the fifth. Sharp 5 resolves up a half step to the 13th, and the 13th resolves down to the 5th or can go up to the 7th. So the first way to play outside with concepts you already know is triads. And triads are a common and effective soloing technique. There are many tonal, which meaning consonant applications of triads in improvisation that I'm sure you already know if you're watching this video and wanting to play outside. But here we'll be focused on ways to create the outside sounds using major, minor, diminished, and augmented triads. The first way to use triads in an outside context is a concept I like to call opposite quality. It involves figuring out the basic triad that a 7th chord is based on and switching the quality of that chord to the opposite quality. So for example, the opposite quality of a major triad is a minor triad, and vice versa. The opposite of a diminished triad is an augmented triad, and vice versa. Using the root of C, here are some common examples of this. If the lead sheet says C major 7, the basic triad that the chord is based on is C major triad. So the opposite is C minor. So you can use a C minor triad over the C major 7 chord. And this gives you tension sharp 9. If the lead sheet says C minor 7, the core triad of this chord is the C minor triad. The opposite of that is C major triad. And this gives you tension diminished 4th, which is also the natural 3. If the lead sheet says C dominant 7, the basic triad is C major, and the opposite of that is C minor. That also gives you tension sharp 9, same as the major 7 chord. If the lead sheet says C minor 7 flat 5, the basic triad is a C diminished triad. You could solo with a C augmented triad, and this gives you tensions diminished 4th and flat 13. This is just the beginning of the possibilities using the concept of opposite quality. When dealing with 7th chords, it is possible to construct 2 basic triads from the 4-note structure. So on a major 7 chord, you can construct a 1 major triad using the 1, 3, and 5th degrees of the chord, and a 3 minor triad using the 3, 5, and 7. In the minor 7 chord, you can construct a 1 minor triad using scale degrees 1, flat 3, and 5, and a flat 3 major triad using scale degrees flat 3, 5, and flat 7. In dominant 7, you can construct a 1 major triad using scale degrees 1, 3, and 5, and a 3 diminished triad using scale degrees 3, 5, and flat 7. On a minor 7 flat 5, you can construct a 1 diminished triad, which is using scale degrees 1, flat 3, and flat 5, and a flat 3 minor triad using scale degrees flat 3, flat 5, and flat 7. This concept of opposite quality can be applied to both of these derived triads. So for example, on a major 7 chord, you originally have a 1 major triad and a 3 minor triad. You could change the 1 major triad to a 1 minor triad. That gives you tension sharp 9. And then on 3 minor triad, you could change that to a 3 major triad, and this gives you tension sharp 5, which is also called tension flat 13. On a minor 7 chord, you originally have the triads 1 minor and flat 3 major. So you could change the 1 minor triad to a 1 major triad. That gives you tension diminished 4, which is also the natural 3. And you can have a flat 3 minor triad, and that gives you tension flat 5 or sharp 11. On a dominant 7, you could change the 1 major triad to a 1 minor triad, and this gives you tension sharp 9. You could change the 3 diminished triad to a 3 augmented triad, and that gives you tension sharp 5 and natural 7. On a minor 7 flat 5 chord, you could change the 1 diminished triad to a 1 augmented triad. That gives you tension diminished 4, which is again natural 3, and the natural 5. You could change the flat 3 minor triad to a flat 3 major triad, and that gives you tension diminished 4, the natural 3. These triads can be used separately or together as a triad pair on any given chord. And remember to keep tension resolution in mind. So how should you practice this concept of opposite quality? You should start with one superimposed triad that you choose and play with it on a static vamp. So for example, if you want to solo over a C major 7 chord with an outside sound, you can use the C minor triad as mentioned before. So start at a very slow tempo, typically around 60 BPM or lower, and solo with just eighth notes, and then you can move on to other subdivisions. Focus on resolving that tension that you have. So in our example of using a C minor triad over a C major 7 chord, you'd have tension sharp 9 that you should resolve up to the natural 3. Gradually increase the tempo in very small intervals, in intervals of 3 or 5 BPM, and vary the rhythm and subdivision. If you're working on combining the 2 drive triads, as mentioned earlier, make sure you work on them both separately first. Experiment with placing the outside pitch on strong metric stresses and on weak metric stresses within the bar. The next way to use triads with an outside sound is what I call quality reharmonization. It is very much related to the previous concept, but is much more liberal. This concept means that once you deduce the basic triad of a chord, you could change that quality to any of the other 3 available triadic qualities. This can be applied to the primary and secondary derived triads of a 7th chord. So for example, if you're using a major 7th chord, you can make the 1 major triad that is diatonically derived to a 1 minor triad, which gives you tension sharp 9, a 1 diminished triad, which gives you tension sharp 9 and sharp 11, a 1 augmented triad, which gives you tension sharp 5. And you could change the other triad, which is a 3 minor, you could change that to a 3 major triad, which gives you tension sharp 5, a 3 diminished triad, which gives you tension flat 7, and a 3 augmented triad, which gives you tension sharp 5. The last way to create an outside sound using triads is triadic sidestepping. This means that you can play a triad of the same or different quality a half step above and or below the main triad. So for example, on a C7, the main triad is a C major triad. So you can play a D flat major or B major triad because D flat and B are both a half step away from the C root. There are 16 possibilities for any given chord. Thank you for watching the first part of this lesson on how to use things that you already know to create an outside sound. This lesson has been on triads. Look back for part 2 on my website for the part on the major scale. Thanks for watching.